Welcome to the Pursuit of Growth show, where we hold candid conversations with fascinating individuals from all walks of life, where we learn about their passions, successes, and failures, lessons learned, and how they apply personal growth to their lives. We'll end the conversation with key takeaways that we can all implement to better ourselves and the lives of other people around us. As always, I'm joined by my good buddy, Greg Brinkley. What's up tonight, Greg?
Man, Sammy, I'm doing good, and I'm super excited about our guest today. I think we're in for an absolute treat. Joining us, we have Cameron Davies, who is the owner of Davies Enterprises, which is the parent company to Cruising Kitchens, Davies Entertainment, Printit, Davies Med Clinic, Cana, and Davies Boxing and Fitness. Cameron, how are you, my friend?
I'm good. I'm been a little bit busy, but good. It's an honor being on the show. I've wanted to do this for a long time, as you know, and tonight's the night.
Tonight's the night. And Cameron, I've got to state this. I've known you since high school. And it's been a joy for me to watch you from afar as you have successfully grown a family, several businesses. You've been an inspiration in terms of the work that you've done with the community in San Antonio, things I've seen you do in our hometown of Georgetown, Texas. And I'm really, really, really thrilled to be able to have a conversation with you today to catch up on really learning a lot about your journey, you know, from high school, college, and where you are today. But man, thank you for your time and thank you for being here today. I cannot wait to have this conversation.
Come a long way since that kid y'all taped to a chair during fish day, huh?
Yeah. I was going to say, we taped you to a chair, and I can remember several times when our friend Royce Hamilton would pick you up and throw you in a bush.
Yeah.
Before we would go out wrapping houses with toilet paper.
I do remember those days.
But that was until you got bigger than all of us, and we couldn't do that anymore. Well, man, one of the things that I want to jump right into this conversation with you about is something that I didn't really know about until after the fact. And several years ago, I saw you posting on social media, and you were talking about how you were struggling with an illness and how you really had a long battle. Really came from a vacation that you went on. And over time, and I guess a little bit was just me kind of diving in and just catching updates as things went, but you were very transparent and you shared, look, I almost died. I had a near-death experience, and this was something that really changed your life. And so I wanted to ask you if you could share what happened on this vacation, and ultimately, what did you learn from this experience, and how did it impact your life?
It was crazy. It was in March of 2018. We went to Cana, Dominican Republic, you know, thinking we were going to have the time of our life. I took my best friend, Casey took her best friend, kind of tried to, you know, play matchmakers, and got there, and it was beautiful, and we were excited, and we had the time of our life. But I can remember it was a 4-day trip, 4-night, 3 days. And so during the third day, I started feeling weird. I had my stomach was hurting pretty bad. And, you know, I was like, you know, maybe it's, you know, the food, maybe it has something to do with sitting at the pool all day, maybe a couple of drinks is the, you know, the problem. And so the night before we're leaving, I told my wife, something's just not right. You know, I can't wait to get on the plane tomorrow. And she said, well, babe, we've had the time of our lives. And I said, yeah, I understand that, but I know my body, something's not right. Anyway, the next morning I woke up, I was sick as a dog. I was thirsty. I couldn't, you know, and I really do make sure that I stay hydrated at all times, no matter where I'm at. You know, I'm very conscious of that. So I drink waters and stuff during the day, and I knew it wasn't dehydration, but I was so thirsty. Well, anyway, long story short, we're leaving the next day, and I told Jake and my wife, Casey, I said, look, guys, and Cindy, I said, I got to go outside. Like, something is not right. In my arm, I was pulling my suitcase, and my arm started cramping. About that time, I couldn't hold my suitcase, and my arms crossed, and then my legs crossed, and there was this paralyzing pain. And I remember my face like I was having a stroke, just everything went together. And I looked at Jake Marshall and I said, Jake, am I dying? Am I having a stroke? What's going on? And he just started crying. And it was the craziest thing. About that time, my wife's like, you know, frantically, but in a calm, frantic way, I guess, trying to say, you know, tell people like, oh, is he, you know, was he drugged? Does he do drugs? My wife's like, we're leaving. My husband's never done drugs. Like, we need an ambulance. And my eyes started rolling in the back of my head. And I remember I was in so much pain. And I looked at my wife and said, tell the kids I love them, I love you. Oh. I thought I was dead. Fell out, woke up in an emergency room, you know, hours later, hooked up to IVs and tubes and everything. And It was terrible. You're talking about in Cana, in a place you don't speak the language, flies flying around, like, something you see in a movie. And they came up to us and said, we need $3,800 on a credit card right now in order to administer any medical health to your husband. There was one lady that spoke a lick of English, and it was, for me, I was still so out of it. I don't really remember that. So my wife went in, paid that. They took us up to the top, and it was brutal. They would pump something. They'd tell me every 3 hours they'd come in and say, time for your medicine. They'd put it in, and these IVs, and it would feel like somebody kicked me in my stomach, and my vision would go out, and be watching ESPN, and then 30 minutes later, it'd slowly start coming back. It was terrifying. Got back to the United States. It was a brutal experience. Ended up in the emergency room like every week, just trying to figure out, anxiety, depression, just terrible feelings of not knowing what to do. And long story short, I found a doctor, and he said, look, man, have you been tested for C. diff? And I'm like, C. diff, I don't even know what that is. So they had poisoned me. They didn't want me to test positive for the poison, because then they would go quarantine the resort. So they killed all the poison in me. And when they did that, it killed all the bacteria in my body, good and bad.
Wow.
And so in the hospital, they think I contracted C. diff, which is a bad bacteria. My body couldn't beat it. Could not beat it.
Do you have any idea how you got the poison? Any clue?
Yeah, we have a guess that it could be through alcohol. And then also there's a tuna that they poison people with, because it's one of the poisonous foods if done wrong. And that's what causes your body to actually seize like that. And so, I've learned a lot. I have a lot of medical friends now with the Med Clinic. And so we're kind of slowly putting the story back together. But it still bothers me. I still face pretty bad anxiety. Luckily, the depression's gone, but I was so weak because I couldn't hold anything down that I would wake up in the middle of the nights with such bad thoughts that I'd have to hold my kids to get through a night. It was terrible. I was on vancomycin for 6 months, and it's a very strong drug with horrible reactions. I was building our mega facility, so I was here working and like an idiot, not taking it easy. I'm gonna tell you right now, I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. I fought it for a year. They finally came with me and said that we were going to have to do a stool transplant. And we did a stool transplant, and slowly but surely, I've rebuilt my body. I ballooned back up to 207 pounds. I'm now, weigh about 182, and I feel good again for the first time in a long time. But just still, some of the side effects of it they're gonna linger for about 10 years, I think.
Wow. And so it's been 3 years since this happened.
Yep.
And you're just now starting to feel like you're getting back to yourself right now.
To a certain extent, I'm still not myself. I feel good. I work out almost every, day at the gym, but it's still, I just don't have that, I'm always energetic, but I just don't have that strength that I used to have, but I'm working on it. Look, I'm not making excuses. I feel great, but it's weird when I did the stool transplant, I adapted to a lot of the person that, gave me the stool, as horrible as I say, their allergies. And so it's just retraining my body. I'm a different, it's different the way that my immune system works and things like that. So
are there certain things that you've had to do differently in terms of like your diet, or even like just do you do anything like whether it's meditation, or like you talked about the anxiety and some of the depression? Are there certain things that you've learned that you can apply now that can help you to manage, fight, or push that back against that?
Yeah, I always tell people working out's the best thing for me, and I work out with groups, so we hold people accountable. But you have that, that great, kind of teamwork. But the physical helps the mental. Obviously, I have to take probiotics, I say, for the rest of my life, and then I really watch my diet. I do. I mean, I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm not ever going to be. I still love to, drink and eat what I want and things like that. But I try to meal prep during the week. But just yeah, man. And I finally had to face the fact that, look, for right now in my life, I've got to have a little bit of anxiety medicine. And, forever I was like, I'm not gonna, I don't want to be dependent. I want to be dependent. And I was just always a wreck, but I can feel it, man. When it's coming on, I can feel my jaw hurts, my arms. I know exactly when it's coming on. I try to, get ahead of it, but look, it's something I'm going to face for a while. And I'm learning to understand that. And I don't talk about a lot of things on social media for a reason. I don't talk about health, politics, sex, religion, things like that. Some because I can't by contracts, but others just because it's not right. But I don't know why I put that message on Facebook that day that I was going into that, but that message saved 2 people's lives. Because what people don't realize when you're battling C. diff is a lot of it is your body's so beat up, it affects your minds. They mask your mind with anxiety, depression, and anxiety and depression medicine while your body's just being eaten alive. And so that's why 9 out of 10 people, they say there's different studies die of it, is because they diagnose them with other things.
Wow. That's, there's so much that impacts your entire body, your mentality, your life when it comes down to that bacteria, like you talked about. We've had health experts on the show, and just the gut microbiome, is connected to everything in your body, right? It's a living organism inside you that controls you and that helps you, and so it's interesting you say that, like the donor that you received from, you've picked up some of those tendencies and stuff like that. I mean, it's got to be like this kind of foreign feeling that you've never had, but looking at you and knowing how hard you work and seeing all the inspirational stuff you do, man, I can tell you, I'm just inspired to hear that you're pushing through all of that, because I knew just a piece of that story, because I saw the same Facebook post. But man, that's got to be one of those things where let's count our blessings that we have people like you that can show us the way to grin and bear it and go through it, because I think a lot of people will find inspiration in that as well.
Yeah, look, for whatever people believe in, spiritual, religious, God, whatever it is, I feel God put me on this earth to take care of people. I feel like he put me through that to become stronger, and it's made me a stronger person. It's made me a better husband, a better father, a better, business owner, a better mentor. And look, I've been put in this position to give back. So it's to help people out and give back. And that's just what I love to do,
Yeah.
I could have a lot more money in the bank if I didn't do the things that I do. I give away more money than I make a year, but you know what? I wake up every morning ready to go do it again.
That's something that, we've got a lot of questions, that we want to ask you about your origin and all that kind of stuff too. But something that I noticed just in researching and talking to Greg a little bit more, and I've met you personally, and I'll share a story that really resonated with me, that you and I had a one-on-one conversation that I don't know, you probably don't remember, but I'll bring it up to you later. But something that I noticed in some of the articles was the common thread about you giving back. Greg and I talked about like the awesome vehicle that you made for the guy that didn't have any arms, right? The medical clinic that you've created, that's like got lower priced COVID and medical attention that comes to you mobile wise. And every article that we read and every bit of research always had that underlying thread of giving back to your community as well. Where do you think that comes from?
Just my upbringing. I was raised by my mom. She's my hero, will always be my hero. My dad has always had a huge heart. My older brother, look, my mom had to work a lot, help raise me. My younger brother's just like checks on me every day, still this day. It's family. There's a tattoo on my arm that says, "Without family, I have nothing." That's how I live my life, but that's where I get it from, to be honest with you. And then I get into marry my wife, and her family's the soil of the earth. They're from a small farming community, Eagle Lake, out by Columbus, close to Houston, and same core values. And so, look, man, as much as I get put in the spotlight and get the credit for, doing all these charitable things, it takes a whole army in order to do those. And that's my team, and, my family. And my family is my work team, my at-home team, and, just my friends. And that's like, it's like I tell my shop every Monday in a production meeting, attitudes are contagious. I love every one of them. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart, because look, I've been thrust into the spotlight because of how hard these people work from, being away from their families. And I love it when the media asks me how many employees I have, and I say 0. And like, Mr. Davies, like, come on. And I keep saying 0. And I said, I've got, all these people that work with me, not for me, because we work together. And like, the biggest compliment I get, and I'm going to be straight up, and you'll see it when you get here, is, look, our building's amazing. Our buildings and our work that we do, I think, is better than anybody in the world. But our crew is the happiest, most outgoing, respectful crew in the world. And I'll put them up against everybody. We got the fights coming up, and we have a whole section called the Dog Pound, and it's just our people. And you can imagine how intimidating that is, going in to somebody's entertainment building fighting their fighters and having the dog pound against them. And so, look, it comes from everybody, within our hearts or, hard work. So I can't take credit for it all by any means.
Cameron, there's a guy up here in Dallas. His name is Steve Hall. And he was the CEO of a company called Driver Select, which was a used car dealership that he grew into just an amazing enterprise here in Dallas. And he ended up selling it to Echo Park, which is a nationwide type brand. But I've never seen culture done better in a company here in Dallas than at Driver Select with Steve Hall's leadership. And one of the things that he talked about, he said, I talked to my team leaders, and he didn't call them employees, he called them a tribe. He said, this is our tribe, this is our family. He said, as leaders of this organization, we have more impact on the health and wellness of our tribe than their doctors, than anybody else in their life. Because in this world that we live in with stress and anxiety and depression and fear and how it's all ultimately sometimes tied to our career and our finances and some of these underlying things, we have a responsibility to love, to help support, and to build our folks that are with us. And I've never been to a company, you could walk into those doors and you could feel it, right? And it was different than any other organization I've been in. It sounds very much like that's what you've got with Davies Enterprises. Can you share a little bit about some of the things that you do that enforces kind of that family aspect of your organization?
Well, one of my favorite parts of the day is going down in the break room and eating with my crew. That's my homies. That's my guys, my girls that we work together with, and I spend, let's be honest, more time with them than I do my at-home family. That's one, and just talking through things. Every Monday in the production meetings, I tell them I love them. I tell them attitudes are contagious. But there was an instance when I just felt it, Greg, and I don't know why. I was working out that morning, and it was early, and I was like, man, I just had this feeling somebody's going through something. And I said, look, if you ever feel like there's no moving on, you ever feel like suicide's an option, just come talk to me. Look, I may be the busiest person that you know, but I'm always going to have time. Gentleman came up to me, he was going to kill himself that night.
Okay.
And it was financially. And it wasn't anything financial because we didn't pay him, because we pay our people very well. It's just because of some stuff he had gotten into and couldn't get out of. But having that talk, for some reason, that production meeting, he pulled me aside that day and look, we got him through it. And he's a much better person in a much better place. And, there's just instances every day like that. But it's just, I truly do. I love this crew. And I wouldn't want to work with anybody else. It is stressful right now. I've got more than I should be doing, more on my plate. But to walk out in that shop and see how happy those men and women are, look, I wouldn't trade it for the world. I really wouldn't. Really wouldn't.
That's amazing. Well, I'd like to jump into what you do now. And I'd love to start. Sammy and I we love origin stories. And so I knew you in high school, Cameron. And if you'd have gone to Greg Brinkley when I was a senior in high school, and I think at the time you were probably a sophomore. And if you
I was a
said,
freshman.
You're a freshman?
Yeah.
You're a freshman. If you'd have told me that Tyler Davies' little brother is going to grow up to do what you're doing now, I'd probably look at you cross-eyed and said, say that again? Like, we're talking about the same Cameron Davies, right?
I was the Cameron Davies that when y'all would be in Tyler's room, I'd walk in and throw a soccer ball and hit you on the head and run as fast as I could. So my ass, yeah, that one, yeah.
Yeah, that's the same kid. And that's like the PG version of the stuff that we would do back before. There's no doubt about it. And by the way, don't think that we can't throw Tyler under the bus at any time in this episode. So just keep that in mind. Colin too. But I know you started when you left Georgetown High School and you graduated. I believe you went to Baylor, if I'm correct.
I did.
So take us from Baylor all the way to when you actually started Cruising Kitchens.
Okay. So I went to Baylor for a couple of years. I was lucky to go to the transitional period because I, wasn't smart enough and didn't have the best grades. And so that's what I thought at that time. But so I went to the transitional period, but I went the second half of the summer. Best decision I've ever made, but probably the worst. My mom will say. I went up there, had the time of my life, met everybody, got all A's because everybody does. That's how they get you in, Yeah. And like I said, learned. I met a lot of people, learned a lot about how to get by. Anyway, joined a fraternity wasn't the best thing I could ever done. I played intramural sports, and at that time, intramural football was bigger than Baylor football because we were terrible.
Mhm.
So our
Right.
sidelines would be packed. I remember I was a freshman. I ended up being the starting quarterback as a Sigma Chi. And so I thought I was cooler than I was because the fields were only 60 feet long or 60 yards long. I had this weird arm strength and I could throw the ball the entire length, but I was 5 foot something, So did that, had too much fun, failed out, got a 0 actually one semester, got in a horrible accident in the way of a fight in College Station. Ended up not going back to class. I remember getting home, my mom asked how I did. I said, all right. She just said, you got a 0. And, my mom was this hardworking woman that tried so hard to provide for us. And so it was eye-opening. Then I had to figure it out. And so I had to leave Baylor, leave all my friends and come to San Antonio and work for my father in the aircraft industry. And it was long days, long nights, hot on the tarmac, working on airplanes, but it taught me work ethic. And I've always had work ethic because I've always mowed yards my entire life, but it taught me true work ethic. And as an adult, and so FAA made it very difficult for people because we did upholstery work and stuff like that. You had to burn so many materials that it was time for us to just figure out what we want to do outside of that. So my dad became a realtor. I started a company called 210 Customs where I was building, like the donks with the big wheels and the candy paint jobs and the ostrich interiors. It was fun because I was 25 dealing with NFL athletes, NBA athletes, getting to go to these parties, throwing these parties. But I was a terrible businessman, and I lost everything. And I still remember it. I still remember that I built a vehicle for Time Warner Cable, and they had locked me out of my building because I didn't have legal guidance. And if you took in all the late penalties that they had charged me, I was ahead in rent, but I didn't know any better and didn't have guidance. And I didn't have a team. I was the only one. And then I just had guys that built cars in the shop. And I remember looking back and I'm like, these vindictive, what? Well, they resurfaced after I let them have everything I had in there, lost out on hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of stuff. I remember when the attorney came in and served me some papers when I had started Cruising Kitchens and Boardwalk on Bulverde. And they said, you have 2 assets, an airstream and something else. I'm like, what do y'all want? Well, they ended up coming back and saying that I had owed them for attorney's fees. And I said, that's about as bad as it gets. And one day I'm going to give back and I'm going to, prove them wrong. Anyway, they're out of business now and where we're at. But anyway, I got into building the food park and I used to tell my wife, I remember she would get so mad. She's like, you're so ghetto. I'd say if I was just liquid, I could make so much money and provide so many opportunities. She's like, you sound like you're from the ghetto, And one day a guy came in and I had done some work for him. And I remember getting $2,500 and I had nothing. Like I didn't have a car for 3 years. When I said nothing, I had nothing. And we found out we were pregnant with my daughter.
Okay.
And we couldn't pay our rent. There was $900 a month at our apartment. We were borrowing money. And I was like, I'm going to figure this out. So I started flipping step vans and eventually got into food trucks. And, I went broke on the Cruising Kitchen side, was just trying to make ends meet. And then when we started this food park, it's when it all connected. I was like, wait, if these people are going to pay me rent and they have these food trucks, why don't I build these food trucks? Self-taught ourselves, and now we build more than anybody in the world. So it's one of those things where you never give up. No matter how bad, you're down in the dirt, you can always pick yourself back up.
Yeah, I got to ask you. So what was it about food trucks that was like the light bulb? And in terms of, we all know what food trucks are now.
Yep.
But when you started this, I don't think that food trucks were here in Dallas, it's huge, right? In San Antonio, it's huge. Everywhere, it's huge.
Yep.
But I feel like you were at the very precipice of it. So what turned the light on?
Well, first of all, I knew that they would be easier to build than a car. And I know that sounds crazy. Not easier, but you could build them in a quicker time frame because you don't have to do all the sanding, all the body work, find all the guts. You build it from scratch,
Yeah.
My grandparents are the ones who got me into it. Gammy.
Okay. Shout out to
awesome.
Gammy.
94 years old, still kicking it like she's 20.
Nice.
But she said, you need to do this. So I went down to Austin and traveled, and I took a trip down there and I just started studying food trucks and trailers. And at that time, Torchy's Tacos was the one. So I studied them and then came back and I was like, you know what, I'm going to build these things. And I'm going to be the best at it. I'm going to build more than anybody in the world. I got into it and I remember getting into it with somebody in my family. I'm not going to name who it is. And he was like, look, this is a phase, it's a fad. And I said, no, it's not, because eventually real estate's going to be so high that people are going to be forced into a, smaller footprint inside, larger footprint outside, just like the European dining lifestyle. And then, it happened food trucks took off, they're not going anywhere. Then the pandemic happened, and that's now ghost kitchens. And we build more ghost kitchens than anybody in the world. That's the new facility we're building. So look, a lot of it's by luck, a lot of it's by hard work and just being in the right place and, doing good things and building product that provides for people.
So can you talk a little bit about ghost kitchens? What are ghost kitchens?
A ghost kitchen basically for us is, they can be brick and mortars. For us, they're trailers, and it's just a trailer that we build over and over and over. And what it does is, think if you're, Burger King, you have 500 locations. All of a sudden, in 2 months, you can have 500 more locations by ghost kitchens. You don't see them. They've delivered by Uber Eats and things like that, but it doubles your footprint, doubles your valuation. And we have a client that we are building as fast as we can build them for, we build them. And it has been probably the most challenging thing I've ever done. And scary, because we just bought a city block downtown San Antonio. It's got a 100,000 square foot facility, but it's got inventory in it for days. And you'll never understand. We build about 50 to 75 of these trailers at a time, and you'll never understand how much of a footprint it takes to do that. It's the craziest thing you'll ever see. And we're doing it, and we're doing something that nobody's done before. And I love that challenge in it.
There's so many things that, as we were looking at the different companies, I told Greg last night that I was like, I'm just inspired, because I would love to bottle up your insight and your creative energy that you have. And because if we sold that, we'd all be, trillionaires and flying to the moon and back whenever we want to. But one of the things that I noticed was, you've always kind of had this little knack. Like, it seems like you've had this insight, like just like almost like a behind the scenes look at like the insight to think about, like, hey, the European style of dining, right? Or like, hey, you're going to have, rent's going to be so much higher. Real estate's going to be so much higher. People are going to be looking for alternative ways to, like, have a kitchen or have a restaurant or whatever. Man, I don't even know if you know where it comes from, but like, tell us some of the ways that you kind of process whenever you find these inspirational moments. Like, where does it come from? Like, how do you go through that?
As much as I like to say it's from, I'm smart. I mean, look, I've got intelligence. I like to call myself street smart. I study things, and when we started Cruising Kitchens, the only thing that was dictating our timelines other than us was the company that were wrapping the vehicles. And I was like, can't be that difficult. Learning it is very difficult, but there's cost savings to it. And, I'd have clients like Cameron, I need my food truck, and I'm waiting on this guy to wrap it. He wraps it the wrong color tone, things like that. He doesn't redo it, so I have to pay out of pocket. Then it's time to transport the company. That's our the transportation company. There's a lot of things like that. But also, if I can figure out a way to do it, and I know that I can provide opportunity and at least break even in that business, that's a win for me. Medical thing. I had boxers looking to fight. And the COVID testing was crazy. I knew we were getting into a time where everybody was going to need it, but I wanted to find a way to do it and do it where it's cost effective for people that had insurance and people that didn't have insurance. There's just things that I see that I want to do. The boxing, I fell in love with it, but I knew, I went to get my management license, and the guy, Greg Alvarez, who runs a boxing commission, was like, I know you and I've studied you. I don't want you to just be a manager. I want you to be a promoter, because I want you to throw these shows, and I want you to bring opportunity to people. And I want you to show the world that, box can be, what it was again. And that's what we're doing. We're changing the way boxing is done. I mean, guys, we started an entertainment company 2 years ago. Now we're being asked to throw some of the largest events out there, and our fighters are fighting on some of the largest cards. And it's just because, look, we've been in the right place at the right time, but we've also, worked our asses off to get to that point and taking risk. You got to take risks. I mean, there's not a successful person out there that's self-made that hadn't had to take a risk.
Yeah, I'd love for you to, or Sammy, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted you to just talk a little bit more about that risk, because there's so many different people that are on the fence about everything, right? That analysis paralysis. But so many people that we've interviewed and so many people that we talked to that have that kind of, and it's an overused term, but like the hustle mentality, the hustle spirit, which you definitely have. What is it there, like, what can people learn from you when they think about taking that risk? You know, what did you have to push through, and what do you think they're going to encounter when they finally do take that leap?
Without risk, there's no reward. Let's be for real. More businesses fail than make it. But at the end of the day, if you don't give it a try, you're gonna kick yourself in the ass years down the road and think, man, what if? What if? And so I'm pretty calculated about what I do now, but I'm at a point now where I have an amazing team behind me that a lot of them say I'm crazy. It drives my older brother insane because he's a financial advisor.
Right.
And I'm like the Wild Wild West coming out blazing. Like when Med Clinic happened and it was like, hey, let's build a couple units. I built 45 of them because I knew that there was going to be a need for them. But it's just, look, I'm not going to say running a business is easy. I remember doing Blue Collar Backers on Discovery Channel in 2015. And the part of that show that wasn't scripted was some of the conversations we had. And I remember talking to a guy that he called and wanted to partner up. And I don't partner with people. That's not something, but I had to, interview these people for TV. And I said, well, what are your plans? Well, here it is, what are you looking your operating hours to be? How many hours you think you're going to work a week? And I remember he told me I'm going to work 40 hours. I'm like, well, you're going to double that up and then double it again, So it's like, there's a lot of risk. Definitely this day and time with COVID-19. I mean, guys, I'm using every resource I have to keep shops open because it's back again. But at the same time, I made it through the first part of the pandemic, stage one of this. I can make it through the second one. It's, I think we all know that we're going to live with this for the rest of our lives. It's not going away. So rather than sitting there and crying and complaining, you just got to battle through.
I want to piggyback off Sammy's question because I think for most people, and this is a generalized statement, but when it comes to taking risk, it's the fear of what may happen, right? It's that little voice inside of our head that's not necessarily telling us that we can't do it, but it's telling us all the bad things that will happen if we don't do it. And it just manifests itself to the point where we just stay idle or we go in a different direction. Mm-hmm. I'd be curious to know, do you have that voice inside your head that's just telling you, hey, you shouldn't do this, or this is going to be hard, or what are you doing? And if you do have that voice, what do you do to silence it?
Look, the voice tells me it's going to be hard and it's going to be a lot of pressure, but I operate better under pressure.
Yeah.
And that voice used to be my wife, to be honest with you. And now my wife's my biggest supporter and believes in everything. I remember we used to sign loan docs for buildings or this or that. She would be combing through every page and she doesn't even look at it now. She just signs her signature because she believes in me. And that gives me the comfort to know that I can achieve anything. And look, straight up, she's my rock. And do we have our ups and downs? Yes. Do we have our fights? Yes. We're the same person, just one in a man's body and one in a women's body. But she also is very understanding. I work a lot of hours. There's a lot of times where my kids are up here at work because that's the time that they get to see their daddy. My daughter just turned 10 and it was kind of eye-opening, like, hey man, it's time to delegate more of these tasks so you can start being there. Now, I'm not saying I'm not there every night. I'm a great father. I don't go to bars after work. I go straight home from work. I get up early. But at the same time, it's, it's hard to have time for family, time for work, and time for other things. And, I'm still learning that at, 10 years into this. And I can still do a better job of it. There's times that, I get home and my punching bag is my wife because I'm bending and then we get upset, things like that. It's just, I'm learning. Look, I'm not saying I'm perfect. I've learned a lot. I've gotten better every year at it, but it's hard. It's very hard. But the voice in my head, like I said, is just, it's going to be difficult. But then the good side says, but think about the opportunity it can provide, and it's not about the wealth. Yes, money, obviously helps you do different things, but I'd rather provide millions of opportunities rather than have millions of dollars in the bank account. And that's just how I do it.
I'm so happy that you brought that line that you just talked about there, because that was actually one of the things. I've got two daughters. I've got a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old. Mm-hmm. And as I've talked to everyone that knows me and anyone on this show knows, like, I pick up so much just a way of like being a dad or being a parent through these conversations as well, because that's one of the things that I struggle with the most as well, is like, how do you find time to do everything? So that was obviously one of my questions, was like, okay, like, you're running 1,000,000 miles an hour in a million different directions, right? You're calculated, you're working hard, and you've got that same kind of fighter mentality and that fighter spirit. when you come home, like, when do you make time? But I love the fact that you've integrated the kids into where you are, like they come to see you if need be. If you get there late, I'm sure you have special routines. But talk about that family life, like the way that you kind of blend it all together, because you could tell you don't work 120 hours a week without like having to sacrifice some stuff. But it seems like you found a good way to kind of integrate a whole lot of stuff. But I love the fact that you also said, hey, I'm still learning, I'm still trying, because that makes me feel good, because I am too.
Yeah, we all are. We're always a work in progress. And, a lot of that came from my wife. My wife, knew that the kids needed me, but knew that I had to be here because, the men and women out here needed me. And so she started bringing around. And look, unfortunately, what we do is pretty cool. We got boxing gyms and recording studios and, all this stuff it's pretty cool for an 8-year-old and 10-year-old.
Yeah.
So it really does help. So I'm not that cool when I go. They don't really care to see me. I give them a hug and a kiss. But, one of the neatest things that I've experienced that I've had as a parent is we went to Austin for my daughter's 10th birthday. And, there was a huge project we had in Waterville. So I was getting some phone calls and she understood that was going to happen. And so it came Sunday and I was like, look, Kenny, like, I felt like we did a lot for your birthday, but I don't feel like I was just there for you at all times. We're going to stay in Austin. We're going to go to a soccer game and, and we're just going to stay here tonight. She goes, Daddy, there's no way. She goes, you can't miss Mondays, or you can't miss work on a weekday, let alone Mondays. That's your hardest day. And I said, you know what? I've got a team and a family behind me that can handle this. And I said, what do you want to do on Monday? She goes, Daddy, I want to sleep in with you and mommy and Kason, and I want room service. And so luckily there happened to be a Starbucks in there. So I got up and got them their non-coffee, whatever drinks they drink.
Right.
I don't. And their cake pops and all that. And she gave me a hug and she had, this look in her face and she gave me a kiss and she goes, Daddy, best birthday ever. You're missing work on a Monday and you're here with me. And it was just like, damn, like that's all she wanted was her daddy time. But what's cool too is we won't want to let them have phones, obviously, but we got these little Apple watches that they can call us on and text. Yeah. And so every morning I get a text and it's like, I love you, Daddy. I'm proud of you and all this stuff. And it's so rewarding knowing that they're 8 and 10, but they know how hard I work to provide the opportunities for them. But at the same time, I want them to, appreciate things, and they do.
I love the fact you said you provide the opportunities, because that's such a sticking point with me that I tell my kids too, is it's that I'm not worried about trying to provide outcomes for you. I'm trying to provide opportunities for you to make your own path, to learn, to grow, to understand what's going on, to know how hard and how challenging things are. And the harder they are and the more challenging they are, typically the success that comes out of those are usually the most rewarding. So I love that statement, but just providing the opportunities, I think, for kids is something key that a lot of people are going to get out of this.
What was cool during the pandemic is, we built a boxing gym and people that couldn't box, our boxers could box. But then after that, it kept extending and, prolonging. So 9 out of 10 of our pro boxers and entertainers, artists work for us in one of our entities. And I remember our kids would go and be like, Dad, like he's a professional rapper or a professional boxer and he's working here. And it's like, yes. And the best thing about that, to be honest with y'all, is my kids learn that, you have to learn other crafts in life outside of a sport or being an artist or things like that. But then on the flip side, it taught these artists and these boxers a life skill. And so a lot of them like it so much, they're still even working for these entities, even though they're back to boxing full time and things like that. But for the kids to see, really meant a lot and taught them a lot about life,
One of the things that Sammy and I talk a lot about in terms of the whole pursuit of growth lifestyle is, we're passionate about having goals and putting your goals in the right areas of life. And if you ask most people, and again, a generalized statement, tell me about some of your goals. They're going to talk to you about their finances. They're going to talk to you about a trip to Aruba they want to go on, or they're going to talk to you about the house they want to have someday. And we challenge people, hey, those are great goals to have, but let's think in some other areas. And for this particular conversation, what are your goals for the relationships in your life? What are your goals for your family, your close friends, your extended family? I'd be kind of curious, do you have certain goals and things that you're working on with your kids and with your wife? And if so, what does that look like?
My goal right now growth is just insane. And not to sound conceited, it is nothing that I would ever imagine in my life, us growing this fast. But it's to build the team that I can spend the quality time with my family, and it also is to provide opportunity. And I love growing, and I remember when our stack of paychecks was like this. I saw it the other day, and it's like this, and it's most people that would but I love it because that means there's so many people during this time that really need it, that are working. But goals are to be a better daddy. One thing that, look, I'm going to be straight honest with you. I have to live the life at home that is portrayed on social media. And there's been times that I haven't.
Yeah.
And so I have to be that person that I look like, and it's hard to say. It hurts me to even say it. And I've said this on interviews before, but there's been times in my life when I wasn't that person. Chris does an amazing job telling a story and making me look cooler than I am, but I have to be that person. And that's a goal for me. That's one of my number one goals, is to be the person in life that I'm portrayed to be on social media.
If you don't mind me asking, what are a couple of things that you feel like you struggle with that you're really trying to hone in on?
Just time.
Yeah.
We talk about spending time with the kids, but that quality time, that not looking at my phone and not making sure that I'm not missing a call or things like that. Back in the day, it was always, hey, I need to do this quote real quick. Hold on, give me some time, because I needed that to grow and do all that. Now it's more like, hey, people just need answers and things like that, but those answers can wait, man. Let's be for real. 99% of the time. And it's not time, it's quality time. And so that's one of them is that.
I'm going to steal it.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm going to steal a question that Sammy actually brought up last night, but I think this is a good time to ask it. So, you've got 6 major businesses going on, and you're talking about, hey, one of my goals is time with my family, and kind of making that integrate together. What are some of the things that you've learned over the last couple of years in terms of your processes, your organization, whether it's, you call it time management or time utilization? What are some things that you have actually implemented to be able to do this? And I think this is an important question, because I know for many people watching this, they have one job and they feel overwhelmed and stressed and like, how can I manage all this? And so I'm almost excited to hear from you. What are some of the things that you've learned to be able to either put that phone down, or how do you get yourself to realize I can trust other people to do these different things? But that's a big question, I know, but I just love to hear your general thoughts on that.
Delegating tasks. And I'll tell you straight up, the pandemic, as hard as it was, it taught me a lot about myself and about business, and I had to figure things out, and I had to realize that I couldn't be everything. So we have the best shop manager in the world. We got the best team leaders. I got the best COO in Marcus, but we were missing a piece of the puzzle, and we couldn't figure out what that piece was. And then I was like, well, Josh Davies, who there's no relation, same last name, had been with me forever, probably knows this business inside and out better than anybody besides myself. And I was like, Marcus, what do we need? And he's like, we need a director of operations, but you just can't hire. It's no different than Mayor Tyler used to say, you need to bring a CFO and you need to bring this. And I'm like, Tyler, nobody can learn. This isn't a business where you just have quote sheets. You got to understand it. You got to live it. You got to learn it, because it's all custom. There's nothing that's the same. So we made Josh director of operations, which gave up. That was my baby. That was me. I'm the one out there, lining out people and meeting with clients and doing all this. And it, as much as it was a dagger in the heart, it's probably one of the best things I've ever done, because I'm still involved in the day-to-day operations of Cruising Kitchens, but I believe in these people and I don't have to be there for everything. And I remember the first truck we did, I walked out and I was like, man, y'all did this without me. And as bad as it hurt, it made me realize, like, look, man, I've instilled something in them, and it's quality of everything. The truck, I remember the refrigerators were wrapped, the underlays of the window, it had custom grills, wheel assemblies, everything was done how I always expected people to do it. And it was done the exact same way that if I was out there or not. And that's when I knew I had figured things out, and we had delegated tasks. And now it's bringing on estimators and a sales force and things like that. And Marcus, who was our CEO, has done a very good job helping me with that. And it's my job, as where I'm at, should be growing the businesses and developing strategies and structure behind those. not, having to go and answer a call from a client about a generator that's not working and things. But that's just how I've always been, because I started it. And so I still do it. And Josh and Marcus are like, Cameron, quit. Like, you know what to do, follow the protocol that we wrote. And it's like, all right, and so that's probably the hardest part, is because I'm a people person and I love, like, look, straight up, I love what I do.
Yeah.
That's probably been the most difficult, is having to step away from a lot of those relationships, definitely the mom and pops ones, because that's the ones I cherish the most.
It's interesting to hear you say that. This is going back several years, but I was at a seminar and the presenter talked about, what is your answer to the question, what's the variable that makes a leader great? What defines a great leader? And again, we can answer that question 100 different ways, right? And he said, I feel like I have the answer though, the one answer that really matters. He says, the true definition of a great leader is a person that builds great leaders under him. And then when he leaves, they're better than he is. He goes, that's the one variable I look at. And honestly, I've always considered myself a leader. And that really stung me, because I started challenging myself, Greg, who have you really built up? And what are you really doing to hit that definition? And it really stayed with me. So I just wanted to share that, because I love how you talked about that with your team. And just hearing you just talk about how great your people are, you've got to have trust to be able to even go down that path, right? And you've got to be willing to give up and sacrifice. And I love how you talk about it stung when, you saw they did a build that was just as good as perhaps you could have done. Yeah. And so, I don't even have a question with that. I just wanted to share that story, because what you just said really reinforced that and really made me just take a moment and say, yeah.
I gotta tell you something so crazy. And Chris is in here with me and he's listening to this and he can vouch for it. So you talk about steam, right? The other night, look, man, I signed the #1 boxing prospect in the world in this kid, Austin. We have opportunities already that are bigger than we could ever imagine. And now everybody wants to sign with Davies Entertainment, because it's no different than a football agent's about to be obsolete because people want a manager. An agent just gets a, attorney to write up some contracts and they're done. Where we encompass everything. We run their social, do product lines, merge things. And I there's one of the #1 prospects after him wants to sign. And so I send it to Marcus and I'm like, read through this is their wants and needs, which weren't a lot. And Marcus sends an email back that stung at first. When I read it the first time, it was like, look, dude, we're at our threshold. Like, we can't do anymore. And I'm sitting here going, and I read it through and I was like, holy shit, like, what he's saying is true. And so the next day in our meeting, we meet with our creative team every morning at 9 o'clock, getting ready for their boxing event. He read the definition of a leader. And, one of the parts in that was like, understanding when enough's enough, or when you're wrong, or you're trying to move, too aggressively and too quickly. Look, I can do it on other things, but on the entertainment side, we don't have the infrastructure set up. And, he was talking about, I could have taken that in a totally different direction and cussed and got mad, but instead I took a step back and reflected on what he was saying. It's right. We'll start doing these kids an injustice if we grow too fast and don't have the proper team behind them. We got the best creative team in the world. And we talked about that in that meeting after that. And it was crazy that you talked about the definition of a leader. And it's to build people up and to try to build them better than yourself. So
that's amazing. It's so, I think there's a quote by, I used to, and I laugh now because I used to not be a quote guy, but there was a quote that I loved. It might've been by Bill Gates, or it was, I don't remember who it was by, but essentially like build people up and train them well enough to where that they can someday leave you, but care for them and enough to where they don't want to, essentially, right? I flubbed that whole quote, but that's essentially it, right?
It's Sammy. One thing I'll tell you, if anybody builds himself up and has an opportunity to do better than they can with us, look, we embrace it. We root for them. We're there for them. But like you said, we always want to build them up and provide such a great opportunity for them that they don't want to leave us, But look, man, I'm in some of the roughest, games out there. I'm in reality TV, I'm in boxing, and I'm in music. And then I'm in fabrication. With fabrication comes warranty and things like that. But, I've learned a lot. I used to get all, flustered when somebody would say something bad about me. But now I look back and I'm like, if you could say one bad thing about me, then I understand it's not warranted, man. I do and do and do. And it used to really eat me up when, I'd read social media and somebody would say something. And I would be like, man, that is so false. But now it's just like, look, if you're talking about me, you're thinking about me, and that's great because that's helping provide another opportunity because you're telling somebody about what we do, And so, yeah, that's a great quote though. I mean, and
Yeah,
that's how we do our stuff.
and Cameron, you know this as well as Sammy and myself, but very rarely is the critic the person in the arena.
Yep.
Right. And so typically people that are doing things, they set themselves up for criticism by people that typically are afraid to do those things they're doing. And so that's something that you mentioned, that I was a person that really, really feared criticism for a very long time. I would mask it, and I would often come across arrogant and overly confident. But on the inside, I hated it until, and this is probably in the last, I'd say 5 or 6 years, I started to really value it and seek it. And Sammy and I, we've mentioned this several times on this show, it's called blind spots. So what are you seeing that I'm not seeing? How can I get better? Because ultimately, if it's constructive criticism, that can fuel me to bigger and better places. But I've got to be able to make the decision to decide what's a negative criticism from someone whose opinion does not matter compared to, okay, this is an opportunity for me to get better. And so I'd be kind of curious, who are the people that you're surrounding yourself with outside of your team? Outside of the people you work with, do you have mentors, or do you have people that you turn to, whether it's for business, for personal, or just you name it, constructive criticism, advice, whatever you want to call it?
So I think the best is, we've developed this crazy creative team that we do, that we meet every day. And it's about being open and honest. We brought in Question, who runs our music division, as the president of Davies Entertainment. And we have Chris in there who runs all of our social outlets. And we have all these guys that develop content and are around all the time. And I ask them, like, Brian, who's head of production, he'll tell me, like, dude, you suck today. Like, we'll film tomorrow, or you're squinting your eyes. You're trying to look too Hollywood. Like, you're doing that. But man, to be honest with you, people don't realize I'm a pretty private person.
Yeah.
I'm in the spotlight quite a bit just because of the things that we do with the show and the entertainment. But I'm a homebody. I'd rather be. I don't think I've ever, without my wife, left work and gone to a bar without her. And with clients, if I go to dinner with clients, it's with her. So as far as mentors, it's the people that I work with, because you can learn the most by the people that are the closest to you. And my older brother is somebody I'm very fond of, just because he's come a long way. My younger brother is growing and really working hard. So I talk to my younger brother quite a bit, just to, work and family and things like that. But I think it's just men and women here.
Yeah, that's incredible.
That says a lot about the types of people that you surround yourself with, and what you want to be with them. They want to be with you, like that you allow them that freedom. But you built the trust, but you allow them that freedom. Like you talked about, the rap was done the way that you would have done it, right? And that's how you know that you're starting to impact them, that you're starting to really make a difference. And then that they're also taking in some of the stuff, they're molding themselves after you. So I mean, that kind of relationship that you've built, is like kind of mentor mentee, it kind of flips back and forth. So that's super inspiring, because how many times have we been to a place or had a colleague or an employee that we've all tried to, I mean, Greg and I have had multiple in which we've tried to, learn from, tried to inspire, and it's just not there. It's like you're not surrounded with the types of people you want to be in. We're fortunate now to really work around a lot of great people. I know I am in my current role. So it's inspiring to hear that that's the type of relationships that you're fostering. And I hope that the people that are watching this, not only at the the manager level or the CEO level, but the employee level, are looking at, and it's a great phrase that Greg always says, you have to give passion to your job. So I hope they see that if they give passion to their leaders, hopefully they'll get that same passion back from them too.
And it's really rewarding, Sam. We probably at least 5-10 times a year have other large companies bring their people through for a field day, just to see how happy people are here, because it's almost like it's unheard of. And that's really rewarding. Also, I mean, Steph, there was a gentleman who came by here, and he's very, very well to do. He is president and CEO of probably one of the largest companies here in San Antonio. and he's an older gentleman, and he walked around and look like he didn't have to be there. Let's be for real. You know, it was his, you know, C-level staff that was there, and he was leaving, and Mary grabbed my arm and he said, look, we may look different, but we're a lot alike. You remind me of a young me. He said, this tour showed me one thing, and that's that I need to start giving back. And I remember I was like floored by it. And I'm like, this guy's got, you know, all the money he wants to do with and he can do anything in life. But if he's not sharing it or not helping people out, then what good is it? And I remember I took that and I went home and I told my wife, I'm like, you're not going to believe what he told me. And she said it made sense, you know?
So Cameron, I had a conversation with a guy last week in an executive coaching group that I'm a part of. And we were talking about just life and business and all different types of things. And I made the comment, and this is something that Sammy and I wrote about in our book. And, you know, we believe very strong in. We think oftentimes where people get it wrong in our culture is they're aspiring to achieve comfort as opposed to aspiring to achieve purpose. And everything that you're talking about just aligns with purpose, purpose, purpose. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
I mean, that's definitely the case. You know, people get too comfortable these days, you know, it's always the people that, and I mean, I don't mean to be bad, that are looking for a loan, that are the people working 30 hours a week, or the people that aren't giving it their best. You know, you create your own path in life. And when you come to an opportunity like this, you can do the day-to-day to get by, or you can work your ass off and grow, because that's what this is about, is growth. But yeah, you got to do it with, I mean, you got to have purpose behind everything that you do, or why do it, you know?
When you wake up in the morning, are there certain things that you're excited about every single day?
Every day.
Yeah. What are some of those things?
You know, like right now, I mean, my day started, you know, at the gym, then I ran over here, got showered, had the entertainment meeting, talking about a boxing event we're doing on the 20th. Then I went into a construction meeting on the event center, and then had to go to Nolan on the Ghost Kitchen, then come back here. And then at 1:30 was probably the most rewarding thing. I don't know if you heard, but, you know, Tamira, the first African-American gold medalist in wrestling, we're donating $250,000 food truck to her mom, and we let her mom know that today, and had that. And then we had ABC, and then I was back to the entertainment, and then in a construction meeting again. And now I got to see my family because they're still over at the construction building, and now we're doing this. And that's my day. How do you not get excited about that? I mean, we're providing opportunity. I'm talking to cool ass people. We're building wild stuff. Like, let's be for real, man. I get a kick out of this stuff, but, you know, watching her story, and she's doing this and talking about how much she loves America. And then to hear the flip side after we made the announcement, didn't know she lost her dad in a car wreck. When he was supposed to be driving her home, but he elected to go to Louisiana rather than Houston. Oh, wow. And was killed. Didn't know she lost her uncle. Didn't know, I mean, that her mom was dead broke. This girl won $37,000 from the Olympics. She was willing to give 30,000 of that to her mom for a food truck. Like, come on, like, how do you not get excited to wake up and be able to go do cool things for people like that? Like, that's the opportunity. And to have the crew that supports you and backs you to do that stuff, rather than complain and be like, well, we could use that money for other things. Like, I mean, it's passion, it's purpose, you know, like you said. So there's purpose behind it.
I don't know if people know this, but when I was researching the medical company that you have, one of the things that stood out to me, I literally stopped Greg in our tracks in our meeting last night. I was like, damn it, Greg. I was like, Cameron just keeps getting better and better, because I was looking at your Printit company. I mean, I'm a graphic designer by degree. That's what I grew up doing. And I was looking at the printing company. I was like, man, that's a great idea. Like, I know why you started it. Like, that makes sense. But one of the things that stuck out to me, which has you written all over it, that stamp, you guys will take any of the helmets that some of the kids have to wear, and, you know, to help form their skull and head when they're little, and wrap those or paint those or design those. And I was just like, Greg, I was like, I'm so inspired by that. Like, it's so smart, for one, to be able to do that, because that's a way you can get back right there. But then two, you're so inspired, because imagine, like, you've seen the kids, like everyone's seen the kids with the helmets on or whatever, and they're typically just white, you know, whatever helmet. But man, talk about like having to tell a kid they have to wear that, and they get to that age where they maybe have to think about it, or they don't want to do it. But then turn that into like a, you know, football helmet and then putting that on, man.
It's something cool.
Jeez.
So a lot of people don't realize that my son had a stroke in the third trimester of my wife's pregnancy. And we didn't realize that until he started crawling and walking, and his whole left side was kicked in. So we had to have an MRI, and it usually takes half a cc. It took 4 cc's to get him down, or some crazy formula like that. We were leaving the hospital because they said we we're fine. Then they buzzed us over the speaker. They said, well, actually, we see something really wrong. You have to go to ABC Pediatrics. Long story short, they read us the results wrong, said we're going to be traveling the world doing brain surgeries. I don't know who did it, but I'd have to say it's probably HEB. Got us in to see this neurologist, and we sit down. At this time, we just think that he has active scar tissue. We don't know about the stroke. And he said, look, I got to tell you, Mr. and Miss Davies, your son, Casey, had a stroke in the third trimester of your pregnancy. And we both started bawling. He said, whoa, 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 that's the best thing. He's a freak. His brain had rewired itself around the scar tissue, and it was no longer active. But I remember before I walked in that room, I saw these kids that were just so much worse off. And you always realize there's always something that's more difficult and challenging in life. And they had Casey got these braces, and these kids had these helmets on. And I was like, man, how do I make these braces cool? So I was like, I told the clinic, I was like, I'm gonna start wrapping these things. I just started printing, didn't even really know how to do wraps yet, but they were like, well, what if, the American Texas Methodists called me and they said, what if it gets bigger than just, a couple of months, and then we'll just do them. We've done almost 2,000. We've done well over 1,500 of them now. And it's an absolute free service. We got to a point to where we were doing so many, we had to chop it down to about 2 a day. But every day walking in and seeing these people from a different path in life, a different story, and just seeing them kind of down. But then when they leave, seeing them crying tears of joy and happy, it's like, why would you not do that? There's a guy that I read about that was charging $600 to do it. And I'm like, man, what a clown, It costs at the most $75 to do this. And we've been blessed, but I'd pay thousands to see that face. There's people, my wife and I stop people in the airport. We're like, hey, how long are you in San Antonio? Come over to Printit. We'll wrap that thing all cool for you. Nice. But just the way now we wrap all the Air Force helmets, and so it's just turned into something pretty cool.
That's amazing, man. I'm inspired by that. I just want to say, I had a kid that had a spinal issue when she was born. She had what's called a tethered cord. So I know the crazy things that can happen whenever your child's born and you get some news. We were told she had a tethered cord. She'd have to have surgery before. I think it was I think she was 3 weeks old, 4 weeks old. Open spinal cord surgery. And then immediately about 2 weeks later, they did another MRI and they found that it had retethered itself just naturally. It can happen. So we had to go back under again for another neurosurgery. And so we had to go see multiple doctors and all that kind of stuff too. So, and just what you've done for those kids and the way that you give back to that, just having that insight, man, that's inspiring. I want to say thank you for having that, because it just makes me want to even do more. I'm pumped up right now. I want to go do something, I want to go help out other people. So thanks for everything you do.
That's what we try to, we try to exert positive energy. We want people to, leave this facility, wanting to do more, wanting to be a better person, and wanting to help people out. And, there's people that you can help and some people that just don't get it. That's just how it's going to be. But I do appreciate that. We do the helmet thing because it's the right thing to do. Not for the notoriety. Obviously, the notoriety comes with it because people share the stories and posts and things like that. But that gives more exposure and allows more people to see it, to get helmets done. So it's kind of one of those revolving cycles. It's pretty neat. And, it was really tough because when the pandemic hit, we had to shut that program down for a little bit, just because, there was a lot of people here that were very scared of COVID and had underlying health conditions. So we had to respect, their fears of that. And so, we started it back up about 6-8 months ago, and it's just, it's so cool to see it. One day you got to come in and just kind of sit to the side and watch. And, the best thing about it is Xavier, the gentleman that was born with no arms that we did the van for, he's front row Joe when you walk in here. He's our bodyguard, but he's also one of our #1 salespeople now. And it's just, they get to see that, and and his mom never let him feel like he was special. And that's why he's such a great kid. So, they kind of walk in like, well, but look at this one of the struggles that he faced. And he's the most positive person with abs better than all of us combined. And, so it's cool, it's kind of a cool experience to watch when they come in.
Cameron, can you touch on his story? Because I followed this along social media, and it's absolutely incredible, the journey that he's been on. And just like you mentioned, I mean, you watch a gentleman like him and you can't feel inspired because he is so strong, and you can just sense his power just coming through just social media.
That's my homie. That is I'll get emotional. Like, I remember before I dive into it, I remember the first interview I did. I was in Baton Rouge filming with Raising Cane's. And it was the first news story we did. And the lady called, and we were both crying so many tears of joy. This 5-minute interview turned into like 30 minutes because she started crying because we tried to tell our relationship. But man, I did a band for Brittany. I was Crosby from Georgetown, and unfortunately she passed away. But you know, her journey is going to continue with Reese and things like that. But the gentleman who was filming that episode was like, hey, look, man, if you look to do this every season, and I said, look, I'd like to give a vehicle away every season. He said, I got the perfect candidate. And he showed me Xavier's story, and I just started studying him, and I fell in love with like the person he was, and everything you see was just so positive. So we brought him and his mom in, and it was just better than I can imagine. You know, a better kid raised by an amazing mom. And they tell the story again about she never let him feel special. She never, ever, ever let him feel special. He had to teach himself how to do everything. So we built this van. We obviously gave it to him. We pimped his wheelchair out to match, and then we gave him the best thing that he ever could have been given. He said, and that's an opportunity to work here. And now he has grown, and he's this grown ass man now that is just so positive. And his stories, you know, dad wasn't ever there for him. And one of the coolest things I remember, he told me after he was working here, Christmas came, and his dad, that was never in his life as a younger kid now, and bought him and never had spent a penny on Xavier or his brother, and asked him to program an iPad that he bought for his son. And Xavier said, you know, I'm gonna have to call you back. And he called him back, and he said, you know, and he calls him by his name, not dad. He said, look, I'm not gonna program that for you, and I'm sorry. But he said, I got a father figure in my life now, somebody that really loves and cares about me, and hung up the phone.
Wow.
And it was hard because as cool as that was for me to hear, I knew how hard it had to be for his dad. But now his dad, taking that to heart, is now trying to make a better attempt to, you know, somewhat try to be there for him. He was at his graduation, and now that was awkward is all hell. But you know, hopefully it makes him realize that there's still time, and maybe he can come back into his life. So, but he's just, look, soul of the earth. This kid is, like I said, attitudes are contagious. We're best in the biz right there.
Yeah, and was he born without arms? Is that his story?
That's the story. So he doesn't have hip sockets. So his legs go straight into his abdomen. That's why you see him when he's working out, he's always doing core, because his core's got to remain strong.
Super, super strong. Yeah.
And he had like these spikes on his arms that they have now done away with. And he tried, you know, they did want to do prosthetics, and he's like, look, man, I've lived my whole life like this. Get them away.
Yeah.
And look, just has taught himself how to do everything. I mean, he eats by, look, the one funny story is, and I got him, I remember on the way to get his driver's license, we're on our way to New Braunfels, and I said, Xavier, I got to ask you something. Is there, because I have to learn him. I just set up a facility for him to work out and operate and feel comfortable. I said, is there anything you can't do? And he said, I can do anything you can do. I said, cool. So we have cameras, we're waiting outside because we didn't know if they'd let us go in and film. And he's like, hey, I'm just gonna go in and do my eye exam. And they'd given us blessing to film it. And he comes out and he's like, we gotta go. I failed. And I'm like, you failed? What do you mean you failed? We haven't even started, you know? And he said, I failed my eye exam, like my eyes. And I'm like, X, you just had LASIK. You have perfect vision. He's like, yeah, but I guess they're dry. So I was like, all right. So we got in the van, and obviously I'm driving. We pull across the street to get gas. I'm like, you know what? No.
Yeah.
I said, I'm gonna go in and get you eye drops, and I'm gonna go back in there, and we're gonna take this damn eye test, and we're gonna pass the driving test. We're not taking this as a no. So I looked at him and I said, wait, how are you gonna put eye drops in? He goes, all right, there's one thing I can't do. I can't put eye drops in. I didn't want to admit it. So I put eye drops in his eyes. We walked in that son of a bitch, and I remember everybody's crying. I thought somebody had had a death in the family, and I was like, I'm so sorry. I was just coming in to see if we could get a second chance. And what they had done is they had gone back in the offices behind and watched the episode and learned who he was. And so they're all crying. So he passes the eye test. They're cheering him on in the driving test. He nails the driving test, gets his driver's license. And it was just, that was probably one of the coolest experiences I've ever had, just because,
Yeah.
it was not because he couldn't put eye drops in. I figured that out. It's because he overcame, what he could have just been like, I'm not doing it. I give up. I'm not going to drive. He was been told he would never drive. And if he did, it was going to cost him $350,000 because he needed this specialized vehicle. And you ought to see the kid. He drives like, he's got Tom Cruise. He's got his aviators on, and he's just the coolest kid, man, just driving around, loving life.
Oh, man, that is so awesome. Like, I've seen that parts of that story, but man, my mind is racing. Greg, and Greg knows it too. That's why I have this grin on my face, because I've got so many. I'm getting a kick out of this, and I knew this was going to be good, but it's been beyond my expectations. And I referenced something earlier when we started the show, and I'll never forget this because this is stuck with me. And Greg can attest to this. Greg knows that from the moment I met you, the boardwalk on Boulevardy, right? Yep. We were there. That was the first time Greg said, "Hey, I want you to come meet my buddy. He's got a food truck park, yada, yada." And I was inspired by, number one, the relationships you had built with everyone that was around there. There were people that were walking in that knew you. There were people that were, that looked like they knew you. Turns out they were just like first-time customers like me, right? But you made everyone that walked in feel special. Mm-hmm. You made everyone, you're like, "Hey man, we have free beer over here." Like from a keg. And I was like, this guy's giving away beer. Like,
that's why they liked me, because I had free beer.
Right. Yeah. Right. And so I was like, okay, he's giving away free beer. He's got great food trucks. He's got this community. You had, I think you had arcade games for the kids.
Yeah, and a school bus.
Yeah. Right. And then we had a very short conversation because I was just inspired. I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. And the number one thing that you said, I think I asked you, like, which one's your favorite food truck or whatever. But you said that one over there, it was the Airstream. And I think it was like your wife's, right? And it was the snow cone. Sold snow cones out of there. And you're like, that one over there is like, and I can't remember if it was the most profitable or the one that makes the most money. He's like, but you'll never believe how much that one over there makes. And then we had a little side chat about, just about the different food trucks and stuff like that. But I'll never remember, I said the simplicity of the idea was that you have a food truck that provides something as simple as a snow cone. But what does that do? It provides joy. It provides happiness to the people that are eating it. And look at all the people that are here in this entire park and that are having a good time enjoying what this guy has built. And the fact that he made me feel that walking in there as well, I was like, man, this guy's got something. And ever since then, I mean, I think I followed you on social media that night.
Yeah.
And that's how I've known you.
My wife would be nursing, and we'd have to close the Airstream down. I'd have to go work it because we didn't have any other options, and it was, she was pregnant making snow cones and that thing, and it was cool. I mean, I remember I'd get excited when every kid running around there would have a colored mouth,
Yeah.
But we made it fun. I don't remember if you remember, but it was called Casey's Cones, and our sizes were an A cup, a B cup, a C cup, and a double D. And these little 13-year-old girls would walk up and be like, "Oh my God!" And they, but we made it fun, and it's just, and the free beer was cool because it brought people in, but then it just led into conversations, and you wouldn't have ever met these people otherwise. And it's not like, Miller Lite would either sponsor it or we'd get a keg of Keystone and people would think it was Miller Lite.
Right. We've all been there. Yep.
But it was cool. Right? The food park was probably taught me how to be who I am. I used to get so nervous doing interviews and things like that, and, talking to people and being around people. And it just kind of taught me my comfort zone. A lot of media came from it. So it helped me, get media trained and things like that. But I owe a lot to, Boardwalk on Boulevardy. It was a good place. It was a lot of work. I mean, Matt Marshall and I built that place with our own hands and without permits and stuff like that. But, we ended up getting it right, but it was cool. And I remember the day y'all were in because I was actually coming in from Dallas, and Greg said y'all were coming. So I was hauling ass down 35, and I think y'all actually beat me there by a little bit. I got out and I was, dirty, and it come straight from work, but it was cool to see. And I think it was a pretty busy night that night.
Yeah.
From what I was packed.
It was a packed night. I think it might have been the first time I'd ever been to a food truck park because it blew my mind. And then I remember you and I had talked about your expansion plans, right? And sometimes you talk to some people and you can tell that they have this vision and you can tell what they want to do. But the way you said it was like, this is what I'm doing. And it was just like, you already had, like, you visually like kind of mapped it all out for me. And it was inspiring. And it's been an honor to see you kind of just the way you've done it, you know, and you've done everything you've said. You said you're going to build food trucks in this, like whatever warehouse it was right behind us or wherever it was. You bought the land, you had this, you had that, and you've done it. So man, just applauding you, man, because it's been amazing for real.
It's pretty cool. It's kind of that lot is kind of our holding lot for vehicles now. And you go back and it's, you know, I built a gym there for a buddy of mine that he rents that piece of land. But every time I drive up, I catch myself just kind of sitting in the parking lot thinking about all the memories that I had there. I mean, it's where it started. It's where we found out we were pregnant with Kennedy. It's where, you know, Kennedy, you know, walked for the first time. It's where our kids kind of grew up around that food park because they had to, because mommy and daddy had to work it because there was no other option. It's where all of our families got together. It's where other families got to go. So you just kind of look at it and, you know, you reminisce on, you know, kind of how you got to where you're at, you know what I mean? And that was through that food park. That gave us nationwide notoriety. It got us the first show on Discovery. That exposure got us to build large corporate vehicles, which allowed us to get into the facility we're in now. So it's just, you know, it's crazy looking back on it.
Yeah, well, speaking of memories, Cameron, so we've talked a little bit and we've touched on a little bit on all 6 of your companies. For the sake of time, Sammy and I have picked 3 that we just want to ask you some short questions about, and they kind of tie into memories. So, you know, first focusing on cruising kitchens. What's the first thing that comes to your mind when I say share a proud moment?
Willie Gourmet. It was the first truck we ever built. And I took a truck that another company had started to build that had done it an injustice. And I turned that thing around and I pimped it out. And I showed the world that you could have a food truck and it can be cool. And I still say to this day, it's the look of a vehicle that brings them in, and it's the product and the experience that brings them back. So it has to be Willie Gourmet.
What's the craziest experience you've had through cruising kitchens?
Well, good and bad. Good was we built the world's largest kitchen. We beat out West Coast Customs. We did it under tarps that we hung from our shop because it wouldn't fit in that tiny ass shop. Where it would rain every single day during that build, but we got it done and we rebuilt at the Bellagio. The craziest is when I had a client in town, and he was very difficult. Not saying because he's from California, but he was from California. And I remember I was like, this guy's just being an asshole. We're sitting in at the little conference room, which was also our table we ate at that shop. Yeah. And it looked out into the shop. And I had this crazy welder. We had asked him if he had, you know, drained all the gas out of the tank and removed it before he started welding. We left some residue. And as we're in this argument, because he wants all these things he didn't pay for, and I'm about to strangle him, I hear this boom. Jake and Matt Marshall on the truck, they jump off, the truck catches fire, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm in this argument with this guy. So I had to tell him he has to leave, his truck's on fire. Anyway, it ended up being saved. We had to reskin the whole side of the truck. We gave it to him. But our relationship became a lot better. He appreciated the fact that we rebuilt his truck, and God, it was crazy. I mean, I look out of the shop, I hear an explosion. My 2 best friends are jumping off the top of the truck, and I got the client freaking out, and I'm going, this is gonna be a good day, you know? Yeah, that's probably the 2.
So we're gonna talk a little bit about Davies Entertainment. So like, what do you think overall? I mean, you're a promoter now, right? You're an entertainer, right? What do you think about the entirety of the whole celebrity boxing, you know, like the Jake Pauls of the world?
Hate it. I fucking hate it. I'm sorry to say a bad word. I hate it.
Yeah.
So I may have purposely teed this question up because I think I knew your response.
I hate it. You got to realize if you're going to do a show like that, do an entire show on that, and it's cool. It's fine. Let them get in the ring and beat each other up because none of them fight. I'll fight any one of them. You have these boxers that train their entire life for one opportunity to fight in front of people, whether it's televised or not televised, to fight on a big stage, to do anything. They cut weight. It's a lifestyle. They live it 360 days a year. That's all they do is train. They sacrifice everything. Like, you think I sacrifice a lot being a business owner of a lot of companies? They sacrifice way more than I do. They're in the gym day and night for one opportunity to fight for any bit of exposure. And then you have these clowns that they're making the main event above these guys who have trained their entire life. I hate it. I had the opportunity to throw huge shows and be involved in this, and I've turned it down. It's not for me.
For you.
It's not for me. It's not for me. It's no different than somebody who inherits a bunch of money and looks like they're this crazy business person because they just have all this money. It's no different. Like, it's not for me, and it never will be.
I feel like it would be a slap in the face to the guys that you're working with, your team, your boxes you're promoting, to do something like that, right?
You're damn right. And I don't do the boxing for the money. I do it for the love of boxing and to provide a safe opportunity, not safe, the safest opportunity. We have procedures and protocols after they spar. They have to wear cranial isothermic helmets, things like that. We have recovery facilities for them. We have Normatec, all that. So I'm trying to bring safety to it, but it's Greg, I'll tell you, and you knew to ask the question to give me, but like I said, I'm not saying don't do it. I'm saying do a card solely for that. So you can have the people. I didn't watch the whatever Paul fought Mayweather. Come on.
Yeah.
You knew they can't knock him out. I mean, they can't knock each other out.
And I didn't watch it. But I saw the replays.
I didn't.
And it was clear that it was staged. It was set up. And
Mayweather hits him that one time. It's like, oh shit, and holds him up.
Almost knocked him out. And he had to hold him up, right?
Yeah.
And that's embarrassing. And for people that love sports, and Sam and I both, I mean, we grew up old school. We love old school boxing. We follow MMA still, boxing to this day. Dude, we are so fired up about what you're doing. You have no idea. And so I love to hear you talk about like your love for the purity of the sport. Absolutely.
I mean, I've got a couple guys that are out of this world. And when I say out of this world, are the best you'll ever see.
Really?
One of these kids has the opportunity to be the best fighter ever.
Yeah.
And you think I'm crazy. I know that sounds like a bold statement, but I'm going to tell you, he has the opportunity to be the best ever. And I'm getting all the young prospects want to sign with us because we're providing opportunity. They're not just a number on our roster. You know, we're running their social. We're putting them in the right places. We're throwing the fights that they can fight at. So we're the A side of the fights, you know, and it's providing that opportunity. But, you know, I love boxing. I always have. And to be in it now, look, man, it's a grimy sport, but we're trying to bring credibility to it in the entertainment industry in general.
Yeah.
The event we're about to throw August 20th is going to be something nobody's seen. There's going to be things in this event that go viral. There's huge celebrities coming. And look, man, we're throwing it in an entertainment center. We're building in 30 days. That's pretty cool.
And you're not finished with building it yet, are you?
Not even close.
I was so bummed because we were looking at, I'm actually going to be in San Antonio the last week of August. And I was hoping that's when the fights were, and I'm going to miss it by 1 week. So,
you'll have to come by and check out things though. But we're going to throw.
I'll take you up on that.
We'll throw 4 to 5 events a year. Now with the event center, maybe more than that, just because you know we can keep our fighters busy. But it's going to be a really, really cool show. But it's neat because we throw the entire event. We do all the production. We get it TV ready. We're doing a live run this time so we can make sure we're ready. But, you know, Marcus, our COO, writes the show. You know, our artists do everything on it. You know, we it's entertainment. It's not just boxing. So it's going to be really cool.
So you mentioned several times the TV shows you've been on. What would surprise people the most about learning the experience about going on and having a TV show? What do you think? I mean, everyone's at home thinking, oh man, I'd love to have a TV show. I'd love to be on a reality show. What insight could you provide?
It's probably the hardest thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
You gotta realize it makes it somewhat easier in the fact that now I produce our own show. So there's days that I just don't feel like filming, that I don't have to film, but I have my own entertainment company. But being on Discovery was the worst experience I've ever been. Left Field was great, but it's just hard, man. When you're, you know, you got to realize, no, not to Richard Rollins and Gas Money Garage, but they're a set. You know, we're a true company that's actually building, and I have day-to-day obligations and client meetings and things like staff meetings, and it's very, very hard. It's probably out of everything that I do and all the risk and the millions of dollars I have to borrow to, you know, to keep all this going and to grow, it's the most difficult thing out of all. It is. You put a smile on your face. You go film. But it's rewarding when you see something go on TV. You know, we were the highest rated show on a time-buy slot on a non-prime time network, and now it's growing to a much larger network, and now we get paid, you know, to do this stuff and things like that. And so, man, it's just reality TV is as hard as you can be, but it it tells the world the story of who you are and what you're about, what you build, and it makes all this possible. It really does. You don't make a ton of money doing it unless you're on the production side. And even at that, it's very expensive to put TV together, but as talent is what they call it. And I hate being called that. I don't allow them to call me that. As being the person on the show, you don't make much money. But for me, being a true business, it provides all options. And that's how we're building these crazy vehicles for all the people we are. And wait until y'all find out who I'm building for right now. It is crazy. I wish I could say it, but it is the biggest of the big.
I can't wait to see it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I recently have been listening to an audiobook with a guy by the name of Grant Cardone, who's kind of a polarizing figure in the sales and real estate world. And one of his things is be seen, be seen, be seen. So get your name out there, and especially someone like you that has so many different avenues. I can just see how it all just kind of goes together. But I think one of the businesses you have that seem like it's the most unique, and we touched on it earlier when Sammy brought it up, but the Med Clinic.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd be curious if you could just rehash one more time why you started the Med Clinic, and then where do you see it going?
And it's crazy right now. We want to be the future of mobile medicine. And I saw it in a much larger play than just COVID-19 testing.
Mm-hmm.
I knew vaccinations were coming, but I knew that the day, and it's going to be true, the day of just going to the doctor because you feel sick is not going to be there anymore. You're going to have to go to a trailer or something outside because the healthy people will go inside. They don't want a bunch of germs and people, because look, it's not COVID. No, things are not going anywhere. COVID is a virus. So I knew that if we could have opportunity, the problem was you couldn't get a COVID testing, where Texas Med Clinic's charging like $350. You have always people that say they take insurance, they're back billing you. I'm like, man, what world are we living in?
Mm-hmm.
And then I learned like how easy it was to be able to do the testing. So I was like, look, man, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna build all these mobile units and I'm gonna take over. Well, a buddy of mine came in and I'm like, what are you doing? I actually walked in the restroom downstairs. It was funny. And he was taking a leak and I kicked him in the ass. I was like, what are you doing here? He said, I'm picking up our signing for a COVID test. And I'm like, COVID testing? He's like, yeah, we're going to do this mobile trailer. And I'm like, man, you're having my hood, having my company do time. And so we started laughing. That was on a Friday. I told him what I was doing because we had lines out the ass down there and out at our unit. And he's like, well, why don't we join forces? So they had COVID quick response. I had Davies Med Clinic. We joined forces, and I own half of that, but it's crazy. And there's a lot of things I get to hear that I wish I wouldn't hear, about some of the stuff that's going on in our world, and a lot of the stuff with COVID that some news is true and some isn't. But COVID is breaking families apart. It's costing businesses their business. Because it's like politics, no matter what side you're on, if you're on the opposite side, you're going to have arguments about it, but it's a challenge. We get to do a lot of stuff to help a lot of people out. We got to go to Bill Gates and do their tennis tournament, during it and all that. We we're doing a lot of stuff for the boxing commission, but it's going to be much more than that. We're trying to set up an infrastructure that changes the way that, kind of the day-to-day, doctor's visit really happens. And so, see what happens with it.
I love that. I think it's so smart because also like you can get to the people that need it as well. It
is so true. Perfect example is the gentleman is our director of operations at the Ghost Kitchen division. His grandma's 94, was having symptoms, and she's way out by Bernie and just couldn't get out. And so we sent our medical clinic to test her and his parents, and unfortunately all three of them had it. So they knew right then to take his grandma, to the hospital because she was having some signs of it. But it's things like that we get to do that I wouldn't be able to do otherwise. There's been client, and I can't say who it is, that we had to drive to Austin in the middle of the night because they thought that their daughter had it and she had a big rehearsal the next day. And so it provides a lot of opportunity, but it also allows us to have a safe work environment. Having the med clinic down the street, if somebody has symptoms, we can come in and test that person, and then you can kind of trace who they've been around, and then test all those people. And so we really have a good testing policy here through Med Clinic, as we're doing for other people in large corporations.
Nice. Well, Cameron, this is the part of the show where we start getting into the fourth quarter and start winding things down. One of my favorite parts of everything that we do is Sammy and I look at all of our notes, and we try to come up with 3 key takeaways that we got from this conversation. And I'm going to tell you right now, I got to stall a little bit because there's so much that we've talked about that I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to narrow it down to just 3. And so before we do that, we've got 2 questions that we ask you, that we ask everybody on this show. And they're subjective in nature, so there's no right or wrong answer. But I'll ask the first one, Sammy will ask the second one. And while you're giving us the answers, I'm going to be multitasking and trying to figure out how I'm going to come up with 3 key takeaways from this conversation. But actually, I think these are important questions. And honestly, these are questions that we continue to be able to share back with our audience. But what first enters your mind when we ask the following question? So what is an actionable tip, maybe a method, a routine, or just something you've learned in terms of self-development and personal growth that you can share with us and share with our audience?
I think it's being confident in who you are and what you do, but loving what you do at the same time. If you don't have passion for it, don't do it. Go do something else. And everything you do it with purpose and do it because you love it. And, look, like I said, money comes, but don't do everything for money. Do it for opportunity. It's for others.
That's an awesome answer. And it's true. It's true to everything you said today. And I hope people see that as well. The second question that we have is kind of a flip on an old question. So you've always heard that question, if you could go back 10 years, what would you tell yourself? What kind of advice would you give yourself 10 years ago? But we're going to turn this on its head. So if you could go 10 years into the future, what would you tell Cameron?
Oh, man.
We're getting deep on you, man.
Yeah. You did this shit and it didn't kill you. No. I mean, just be true to who you are. Don't let, and I hate to say the word, don't let fame and money and things change you. Use, like you said, Greg, use the visibility and the exposure that you get to do good in life and to help other people tell their stories and change people's lives in a positive way. And there's too many times in this world that you see somebody who's grown and been in the spotlight and taken that, and it's completely changed them in a bad way. I hope to God it continues to change me in a good way.
So that's the key is we're supposed to change. Like you hear people say, oh man, you're different. You're a different person now. My answer is, I hope so.
Yeah.
But I hope that change is going in the right direction. And I hope that change is positive growth. And ultimately, and Sammy, I'll start in terms of the 3 takeaways, because this is kind of a nice lead into one of mine Cameron, you said something when we first started talking that I wrote down and I put like 5 stars by. And so while I believe that we all have a unique purpose on this earth, I think we all have universal purpose. Mm-hmm. And you said, God put me on this earth to take care of people. Yep. And you know what? I believe that should be a statement that every single one of us should have as a core value. And quite honestly, we don't. And I hope people that are watching this and hear this, think about what that means to them, whether it's the people in their family, the people in their community, the people that they can impact on. And to take that to a different level, you shared the story about, you'd made a comment and you had a conversation about suicide, and it helped somebody in a time of need, right? Yep. So you never know who you can be helping by just making sure you're living your life the right way. So my first takeaway is, God put me on this earth to take care of people. Boom.
I love that one too. And one of my biggest takeaways here is something you mentioned was, and it resonates with me. So my dad was a mechanic by trade growing up. So I was kind of always around him when he's tinkering on cars. He built little race cars for dirt track racing, all that kind of stuff. So the story about the fact that they built, your crew, they built your team, your family built a truck without you. And it was the way that you would have done it as well, was that you instilled the quality and you built the trust in your people for them to be able to do it as well, if not better than you, and that you could allow them to do that. And I think that's something that everyone can take away, especially if you're put in a position to lead other people, is instill quality and build trust.
And Sammy, I'm going to do it because I like to cheat. I'm going to do a 2-part for my second one, and I'm going to piggyback a little bit off what you said. But Cameron, you said, I believe in my people.
Yep.
And I tell you what, it made me think, who are the people in my life that I need to show that I believe in them?
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? I've said that before. And I need to intentionally make sure that I'm acting upon that, because that is one of the biggest things that we can all do for the people in our lives. But then I also, my two-part to my second takeaway is when we were talking about leadership. And you gave a great example of having to say, or actually having to listen to one of your colleagues tell you no. And hey, this is not something we have to do. So as a leader, sometimes you've got to be willing to say no. And that's a hard thing for all of us, I think, to do, especially when we're ambitious and we're passionate about something. But you can't say yes to everything. And that was a really, really big takeaway for me.
All right, and then I've got two more. I won't cheat like Greg, but I can go. I can go. I got notes and notes and notes here, but I love the fact that you really have a no excuses attitude, but it's not in your face either. It's the way that you mentioned it was you create your own path in life, work your ass off, and grow. And I think that just writing that down on a sheet of paper, even if you wrote that down daily, just you create your own path in life and never forget that. But you got to work your ass off and grow. And I love that statement.
Thank you.
And for my third one, I'm actually not going to give credit to you, Cameron, but I'm going to give credit to Xavier. I can do anything you can do.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That is a motto that
Mhm.
every
Oh.
single one of us needs to literally write on our mirror in like a marker and look at it every single day, as we are often, I mean, in the world we live in, we can't help but be challenged to compare ourselves to others. And Sammy and I, we both, you'll hear us say this all the time, comparison to others is the thief of joy. But yet we still do it. What a great way to combat that, to just say, I can do anything you can do.
Yep.
Love that.
And my
You'll love
last,
him when you meet him.
yeah.
I'll tell you what, we'll talk after this, but if he would be interested, I would love, I think, Sammy, you agree with me, we need to get him on this show.
Yep.
He one day will be a motivational speaker and a C-level executive. I'll tell you that right now.
Love it.
Well, let's get him on.
I just
while we
hope to
can
God it's
afford
with
him.
us still. You
I
know?
know, right? That's what I was going to say. You got to say he's still there.
Yep. My last one, my last takeaway. Well, the only other one out of all the hundreds of bullet points I have here is that just the common thread throughout everything that we said. It's like, it's something I believe in wholeheartedly. It's about helping other people and then providing opportunities. You've ended almost every single phrase with when we're talking about your businesses, the companies, everything you've done in your life, your purpose for life was providing the opportunities. And I think the more that others can do that for other people, it'll change the way that we live. And I think the time is now for everyone to take note of that and start doing that.
You know, I get stressed out and be like, Cameron, you're right. You seem stressed out. And it's like, I am stressed out. But at the end of the day, you know what? I signed up for this shit. So like, I'm not going to sit there and complain. And I don't mean to look stressed out. It's just sometimes your body can't help it. Your face wears it. And it's hard, you know, but I appreciate those because those were key points that mean a lot to me, you know?
Well, and I think that's and just kind of as we start to kind of wrap up the show, I think that's just a really common thread that that I took away is, we talk about there's different types of stress in our lives, and there's negative stress, there's debilitating stress that causes a lot of issues and is something that we need to really make sure we keep at a distance or manageable. There's also healthy stress that pushes us, to force us to grow, to get better, it sharpens us. And that can very easily get to where it starts getting painful. And so we have to know when not to let that go too far.
Mm-hmm.
But I think for you, and this is what I took away, is you've surrounded yourself with an amazing woman, with an incredible family, and then a team of people that really is your extended family. And, when you have those people to share those burdens with, that's when, man, you feel like you can take on the world. And Cameron Davies, man, I feel like you're doing that. And you're inspiring this guy sitting right here. I know you're inspiring Sammy because he said it several times during this conversation. But this has been such a joy to talk to you, man. I'm so freaking proud of you.
Thank you.
And I cannot wait to see where you continue to go. A couple other things that I want to just mention is, one, Sammy and I both are coming down to San Antonio soon.
Come on.
Because we got to check this thing out. And then in the pursuit of growth, I'm just going to tell you this right now. We're going to grow this thing to a point we're going to need you to build us a traveling podcast studio. Because
Right.
we're taking this
You
off of
said it
Zoom.
right here. Okay,
I
I'm
said it
doing
right
this.
here. We're taking
Yeah.
this off of Zoom, and I want some badass. We pull up, and like the thing like opens up, and then like our seats come up, and we've got
Yeah.
this awesome stage and platform.
I'll just tell you this.
Give us some time. We're coming.
Just take
Come
over
on
that
with it.
creative. Take over that. Don't take that direction. You do you, and then that's all. We'll make it to where we're coming to you with an opportunity there. We'll figure something out. But that's a dream of ours. Take this show on the road.
Well, honestly, guys, it's an honor. I've wanted to do this for a long time. Like I said earlier before we were on there, Greg, I love you, dog. Even though you beat me up when I was young, you're my homie still. I'm lucky that my brother was a friend with you, provided this opportunity to have this conversation. Sammy, I do remember the day you came to the food park, and it's crazy how far we've all come.
Mhm.
And again, just an absolute honor for even, it's hard to fathom why somebody would even want to talk to me and hear my story, but it's cool, to be able to tell it.
Absolutely. Well, Cameron, tell people where they can find you. So if people want to learn more about Cameron Davies and everything that you're up to, where can they go?
Cruising Kitchens is our website. My Instagram is Mr. Cameron Davies. Cameron Davies on Facebook. I got a couple pages there. Davies Entertainment. We always have some events going on. Or just hit up Chris, who runs all of our social media. No, I'm just kidding. No, but it's Mr. Cameron Davies. No, I'm actually the one. Chris makes me look cooler than I am on that, but I am the actual one that's, responding to all the stuff and doing the engagement and stuff like that, because I love to hear people's feedback. And it's weird. It's weird that people have interest in knowing, what I'm doing, and I'm going to continue to do it. I'm not going to let it change me, but in a good way. And again, just appreciate this opportunity just to step away from the hustle and bustle that I've had all day and just sit here and talk to real ass people about cool stuff. And I love you guys. I really do appreciate the opportunity, and I can't wait to have you on San Antonio.
Yes, and man, we'd love to have you back on here at some time. And Sammy, you want to tell people where they can learn more about us and live TPG?
Yeah, absolutely. So anything and everything you can find out about us is on livetpg.com or thepursuitofgrowth.com. There you can find a book, which is located right here, properly placed, little product placement there. But you go online, learn all about social media is Live TPG on pretty much everything, but just go to the website, sign up for the newsletter. Greg's pumping out great inspirational quotes, some great content every single day. And this is where you can find this show. We'll blow this up as much as we can. We know you'll do the same. And we look forward to helping more people every single day with all the inspiring actions that you've taken. So again, thank you from the bottom of our heart. Can't wait to see you again soon. Going to hit you up when I'm in San Antonio as well.
Yep, for sure. And I'm going to build that vehicle one day.
Yeah, I can't
Yes,
wait.
sir.
Can't wait.
You heard it here first. All right, Cameron, man. Have a good one, man. Get after it. And, man, we'll be in touch.
Appreciate you, buddy. Y'all be good.
All right, man.
Have a good one.
Adios.
Bye.